Deadly police shooting in LA's Skid Row.
Picture this. You're walking through downtown Los Angeles, just blocks away from luxury high-rises and million-dollar penthouses, when suddenly everything changes. The smell hits you first, then you see them everywhere. People lying on sidewalks, tents covering entire blocks, and drug use happening right out in the open. Welcome to Skid Row, a 50-block area spanning 4.3 square miles that's become ground zero for America's homelessness crisis. Here's what makes this place uniquely terrifying. 48 violent crimes per 1,000 residents. To put that in perspective, Chicago's South Side, one of the most notorious areas in America, only sees 38 per 1,000. Detroit, they don't even come close. Skid Row's crime rate sits at 201% above the national average, making it statistically more dangerous than almost any other concentrated area in the United States. The numbers get even crazier when you dig deeper. Officials claim around 4,400 people live here, but independent organizations report between 9,000 and 15,000 residents, most living in tents or straight up on the concrete. That's more homeless people concentrated in one spot than entire states like Wyoming have in total. And here's the thing nobody talks about. This isn't some accident of economics or bad luck. This place was designed to be exactly what it is. A containment zone where authorities deliberately pushed all the city's undesirable elements into one area, hoping the problem would just stay put and not spread to the wealthy neighborhoods nearby. Spoiler alert, that strategy hasn't exactly worked out. So how do people survive in Skid Row without traditional jobs? Turns out there's a massive underground economy running through these streets, pulling in an estimated $80 million annually. Walk down any block and you'll see brand new bicycles, 8 or 9 of them lined up against walls, most likely stolen from nearby neighborhoods. Electronics, car parts, designer sneakers, all of it gets funneled here and sold for a fraction of retail price. Those Jordan sneakers that normally run $220, you can get them for $20 on Skid Row. iPhones, laptops, power tools. It's all available if you know where to look. The distribution system works like clockwork. People steal from stores and homes across LA, bring the goods to Skid Row, and middlemen take a 30% commission to move the merchandise. Some residents make $150 a day just recycling cans and metal they collect from dumpsters. Then there's the drug economy, which dwarfs everything else. Fentanyl mixed with xylazine, a combination locals call trank, dominates the market now. A dose costs as little as $5 for heroin, $10 for fentanyl. More than 30 street corners have been identified as active distribution points by authorities, operating openly because, well, what are the police going to do? The overdose rate here hits 50 per 100,000 people, compared to the national average of just 14. And here's where it gets really organized. Some people work as watchers for the dealers, earning $50 to $100 per shift just to signal when cops are nearby. It's a full economy with jobs, hierarchies, and its own twisted version of career advancement. The craziest part? About 30% of Skid Row residents actually have part-time jobs in legitimate businesses. They just don't earn enough to afford LA's insane rent prices, which average $1,800 for a basic room. What keeps total chaos from breaking out in a place with basically no police presence? An underground justice system that's been running for generations. Residents call it the Round Table, a group of prominent figures who make decisions, settle disputes, and hand out punishments. And these aren't slaps on the wrist, we're talking brutal consequences that keep people in line. The number one rule? You absolutely do not rape anyone in Skid Row. The punishment is automatic death, no trial, no appeals. According to longtime residents, this rule exists partly because of the grim economics. Why would you force yourself on someone when there are plenty of drug-addicted women willing to exchange sex for just a few dollars? Anyone sick enough to commit rape anyway gets dealt with swiftly and violently. Stealing cars parked in Skid Row? Also a death sentence. You can steal all you want from outside the neighborhood, but inside is off limits. That's why you'll see brand new BMWs, Teslas and Hyundais parked right in the middle of the most dangerous blocks, completely untouched. The owners know the unwritten rules protect them better than any alarm system could. Fighting, small-time theft between residents, even some drug dealing. All of that gets handled with warnings, beatings, or temporary exile from certain blocks. The Round Table consists of people who've earned respect through years on the streets, some through violence, others through connections with organized crime outside Skid Row. Police know it exists, but largely ignore it because, frankly, it keeps some level of order in a place they've essentially given up on controlling. It's a parallel legal system operating right under the nose of downtown LA's financial district, just blocks away from courthouses and government buildings. The irony is almost too much. Daytime in Skid Row is bad enough, but nighttime transforms the place into something out of a horror film. The already dark streets, many with broken streetlights that haven't been fixed in years, become a maze of shadows and unpredictable movements. People start behaving differently once the sun goes down, more erratic, more aggressive, more desperate. You'll see individuals standing hunched over on corners for hours, barely moving, or walking in circles talking to themselves, completely detached from reality. Some open fire hydrants to wash their feet, the only source of water available for thousands of people. Rats the size of small cats dart between trash piles, and the smell intensifies as temperatures drop and concentrate the mix of human waste, rotting food, and chemicals from drug production. The cyclists start their patrols, locals who ride around specific territories watching for outsiders, especially anyone with cameras or phones out. They're not necessarily going to hurt you, but they're definitely letting you know you're being watched. In 2025, several documentarians reported being circled repeatedly by the same people, a clear intimidation tactic that usually ends with the outsider leaving voluntarily. Store windows are smashed, with merchandise scattered on sidewalks mixed with empty headphone boxes, evidence of the day's theft operations. But here's what's truly unsettling. Despite all this chaos, there's an eerie quietness. Most people are too high to make much noise, creating this zombie-like atmosphere where hundreds of people are present but barely interacting. Fire hydrants run constantly, creating puddles that mix with other liquids you definitely don't want to think about. Walking through Skid Row at night, you're not just worried about crime. You're worried about stepping wrong, breathing wrong, making eye contact with the wrong person at the wrong moment. Every shadow could be a person, every sound could signal danger, and help is never coming quickly if something goes wrong. Here's something that'll mess with your head. Right in the middle of Skid Row, surrounded by tents and cardboard shelters, stand brand new luxury high-rises with floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views of Los Angeles. These aren't market-rate apartments. They're specifically built for homeless people, and residents pay as little as $60 a month for a one-bedroom with a balcony. The program sounds great in theory, permanent supportive housing designed to get people off the streets for good. Some residents move from literal tent camps to modern apartments in less than 6 months. They have showers, kitchens, air conditioning, everything a normal apartment includes. But here's the catch. There are only about 2,800 units available for an estimated 15,000 people living on Skid Row streets. The math doesn't work. Waiting lists stretch for years, and getting selected involves a complex lottery system prioritized by how long you've been homeless and how severe your health conditions are. Meanwhile, these buildings cost taxpayers an insane amount of money to construct. Some reports indicate individual units costing up to $700,000 each to build, way more than regular apartments. Why? Bureaucracy, inflated contractor bids, and the complexity of building supportive housing with on-site services. And then there's another weird dynamic. Some longtime Skid Row residents actually refuse the apartments when offered. They've adapted to street life and don't want the rules that come with housing. No drugs inside, mandatory meetings with caseworkers, curfews in some buildings. For people who've lived completely free of structure for years, even decades, those requirements feel like prison. So luxury apartments sit with vacancies while tents remain full just outside. The whole situation represents this bizarre collision of good intentions, massive spending, and a problem so complex that even unlimited housing wouldn't solve it without addressing addiction, mental health, and economic factors simultaneously. It's basically a perfect example of why throwing money at Skid Row hasn't fixed anything. If you thought Skid Row's crime was bad, wait until you hear about the health crisis. We're talking about diseases that haven't been widespread in America for decades, suddenly making comebacks because of the conditions here. Typhoid, tuberculosis, hepatitis A, E, coli, all circulating through a population that has almost no access to basic sanitation. There's roughly one portable toilet for every 100 people, and many don't work or haven't been serviced in weeks. People relieve themselves wherever they can, creating contamination that spreads through the entire area. Rat infestations are so severe that estimates put the population at about 3 rats for every person. And these aren't normal city rats. They're carrying diseases and breeding in the piles of trash that line every street. The tuberculosis strain found in Skid Row is particularly terrifying because it's shown resistance to standard antibiotics, making it way harder to treat. About 40% more cases occur here than in average American communities. HIV and hepatitis C rates among intravenous drug users hit 25%, which is absolutely insane compared to national averages. But the really scary part is the fentanyl mixed with xylazine. This combination doesn't just cause overdoses, it causes massive tissue necrosis, basically rotting flesh from the inside out. Users develop horrific wounds that won't heal, get infected, and many end up losing limbs or dying from sepsis. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Skid Row's infection rate was 300% higher than the rest of Los Angeles because social distancing is impossible when thousands of people live crammed together in tents. Public health officials have been warning for years that Skid Row is a ticking time bomb. One serious outbreak, something like cholera or a drug-resistant staph infection, could spread beyond the area into surrounding neighborhoods and from there across the city. The conditions are literally perfect for epidemic-level disease spread, and the longer authorities ignore it, the more likely it becomes that everyone in LA will pay the price for Skid Row's health crisis. So after everything you've heard, you're probably wondering, why hasn't anyone fixed this? The answer is complicated and pretty depressing. First, there's the money problem, but not in the way you'd think. LA County spends an estimated $619 million annually dealing with Skid Row through emergency services, police responses, hospital visits, and cleanup operations. That breaks down to about $40,000 per person per year just managing the crisis. Here's the kicker. Permanent housing with support services costs around $20,000 per person annually. So the city literally spends twice as much letting the problem continue than it would cost to actually solve it. Why doesn't the money get redirected? Politics, bureaucracy, and NIMBY attitudes, meaning not in my backyard. Whenever officials propose building shelters or supportive housing, nearby residents and businesses file lawsuits, protest, and block the projects for years. Then you've got legal restrictions that tie everyone's hands. The Martin versus Boise decision from 2018 essentially made it illegal to arrest homeless people for sleeping outside if there aren't enough shelter beds available. California's Proposition 47 decriminalized theft under $950, which is why stealing merchandise has exploded. The police department has 1,500 fewer officers than it had in 2010, meaning even if they wanted to enforce laws in Skid Row, they're stretched too thin responding to violent crimes elsewhere. Political division makes everything worse. Progressive politicians want more services and housing without enforcement, while conservatives want criminalization and forced treatment without funding the programs. The result? Nothing meaningful happens. Governor Newsom created a task force in September 2025 targeting encampment removal in 10 major cities, but critics say it just displaces people without providing real solutions. And here's maybe the darkest truth. Some politicians actually benefit from Skid Row existing. It keeps the problem visible, which helps them campaign on promises to fix it, promises they never actually fulfill. The real question isn't whether LA can solve Skid Row. It's whether anyone with power actually wants to. Because based on decades of failed policies, wasted billions, and zero progress, it really seems like the answer might be no.